Hey guys, welcome to a new video, and today I will be discussing some revision tips that hopefully will be useful to those of you either studying for your GCSEs or A-levels at school or completing your degrees or masters at university. I just completed my masters in engineering and therefore have vast experience with the mundane task of revision, which I generally did so using certain steps which I hope most of you will find useful. The first step I would like to share is to plan out your revision meticulously. So have a look at your exam timetable to see which exams are first, as well as the spacing between each. Ideally, you should prioritize an exam which is earlier if there is a large gap between this and the following exam. Using this information, create a revision plan of what to revise on what day. A key thing to note is that this plan does not have to be strictly followed, but rather act as a template so you don't forget to revise certain topics. During my final year of my degree, I started planning like this, and it helps vastly with understanding the breadth of the content to revise, as well as it providing an extra step to ensure that all the content has been covered. Have you ever sat in an exam and read a question about a topic which you had written notes on, but couldn't for the love of God recall any information about? The second tip is to use a method called active recall to revise. This method essentially is training yourself with the ability to recall information effectively. What I found out during the years at my university was that whilst I had all these nice, neat and highlighted notes, only a small amount of information was actually stored in my brain. I realised that writing notes was not the best way to learn and discovered active recall, which, trust me, is a godsend. So there are various tools which can help you with active recall. The traditional method is making your own paper flashcards, but I felt software-based programs were more time efficient. I personally have tried Anki and Quizlet, although I know a few people who swear by Memrise. Quizlet can make revision fun with games such as Mix and Match, and the interface is way ahead of its competition. However, Anki allows you to categorize a flashcard as hard, good, or easy, which it then uses to decide when to actually repeat the flashcard. So for example, you can set the program such that if you find a flashcard hard to remember, the program would ask you again in a minute. If you found a question easy, however, it would probably only ask you the same question tomorrow. This method of revising I felt was much more effective at practicing active recall and avoided the whole issue of memorizing the pattern of questions as questions were randomly asked. The third tip is to jot down key notes, graphs or illustrations onto a sheet of paper. I'm an engineering student, so personally I have quite a lot of graphs and equations to remember, and so that was most of my information that I actually had jotted down on a piece of paper. This information must be concise, that for example are extremely important for you to remember, or just things you are struggling to get your head around. This sheet can then be looked at just before an exam, which can aid in recalling during the exam as it would be fresh in your mind, and trust me, I've done this repeatedly during every exam for the past 2 years, and it has helped me a lot in just remembering things fresh in my head. The fourth tip I'm going to be talking about is something I discovered much later during my years at university, which is working in groups. This doesn't necessarily mean sit down at a table with a group of your friends and go through questions. For example, I was part of a WhatsApp group with my course mates whereby any of us could ask and respond to questions. This helped greatly as I was able to get help with topics I didn't really understand, whilst also helping others and subsequently re-revising topics which I did understand. Groups of course mates can also enable you to collect vast amounts of resources such as question sheets and past papers, which is extremely important, especially when your university, such as mine, does not provide any further material. We had a Google Drive created from past year students, consisting of past papers starting 8 years back, which we would use and then add to before passing it down to the next year students, which then carries on and on and on, which is just beneficial for everyone. So yeah, having a group of course mates for each module, in my eyes, is essential. The final tip I would like to mention is to have a break. Constant revising all day is not productive. Most of the time you'll be likely to procrastinate and just waste time. Trust me, I've been through that, I know. Instead, try to break up revision into manageable chunks with breaks in between where you could socialise with your friends or maybe catch up on your favourite TV show. Also, try changing your scene of study. So for example, if you work at home, maybe try and work in the library if it's empty, or just an empty classroom. This will also help you to regain productivity. So that concludes my personal revision tips, which I hope most of you would find useful. If you have any tips which you think someone else might find useful, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you did enjoy this content, a like would be much appreciated, and subscribe to be notified of more content like this. Oh, and just remember, once you're done with exams and wave goodbye to education,